I recently got a comment in one of my videos which I thought was very interesting. It reads as follows: the gameplay of this game got tiring after 45 minutes. If this game still has its hooks in you, then I question your taste in games. And I guess honestly they're not wrong. Darktide at 45 minutes feels exactly that. You've just gotten out of the tutorial and maybe you've gotten a couple of early difficulty missions under your belt. If you don't like it by then, you'll probably write this off as a game not for you. But 45 minutes is also the exact wrong time to stop, because this game has yet to show you anything. This video is going to change that. Here are 9 things you need to know in your first 45 minutes so you survive long enough to actually have fun. Here are the essentials. Number 1. You can always redo your character looks anytime. Whether you are starting fresh or rolling a new class, don't lose sleep over your character's appearances. Everything is changeable. Should you feel the desire to change your looks or even your whole personality and voice, you can always return to the barber to switch things up. You can tweak any part of your looks for a small fee of ducats, or if you want to completely change your character's name, origin story, and personality, you can pay 50,000 ducats to undergo the personality scourge, which basically takes you back to character creation. You can do this as many times as you like, as long as you have the coin, and as often as you like. Point number 2. Taking care of your survival. In Darktide, you have 5 resource bars that are tied to your ability to survive. These are health, wounds, toughness, stamina, and dodge count. If you want to grow up to be like the pros, then the most important ones you have to always be aware of are your toughness, stamina, and dodge count. Health and wounds only matter if you fail to take care of the rest. So why these 3? In a nutshell, toughness is the most powerful defensive resource every character has to stay alive. Against range damage like gunfire, it acts like an overshield that keeps absorbing damage until it breaks. Against melee damage, it functions more like a damage reduction armor, reducing the damage your health takes based on how much toughness you have left. So the more toughness you have, the more damage you can tank. This also means at 100% or full toughness, you can always afford to eat one melee attack without it bleeding into your health. If you want a more detailed explanation on how toughness works, you can watch that specific section in my previous video. Stamina is crucial because it is the resource you use for both blocking attacks and pushing enemies to stagger them. Most players don't realize blocking in Darktide is omnidirectional or 360 degrees. That means you don't need to be facing the attack, and as long as your block is up, it counts. Pushing is also important because it not only allows you to create some breathing room by staggering or even knocking enemies around, but it also gives you access to push attacks, which can sometimes be devastatingly powerful, like on the Crusher for example. Lastly, you need to manage your dodge counts. Dodging in Darktide is like breathing. If you stop doing it long enough, you'll find yourself in a heap on the floor. Dodging allows you to not only quickly reposition yourself, but also provides you with a small window in which you are immune to melee and range attacks. Be careful, however. Dodging too often and not allowing your dodges to come back can severely reduce the distance of your dodges, making them less and less effective with each consecutive use. Eventually, they'll stop working altogether and you risk getting hit. If there is a skill that you can master which will give you the greatest returns, it is getting good at dodging attacks. With those 3 bars managed, you'll stop dying to things that felt random and start seeing the patterns in the game. This leads us nicely to point number 3. Movement will carry you in games. The higher up in difficulty you go, 2 things become more and more apparent. The first is that enemies start hitting very hard and you should do your best to avoid getting hit at all. The second is that enemies are going to come at you from all directions in what can seemingly feel like unfair numbers. The only way you are going to keep yourself alive if you want to break through the Damnation, Auric or even Havoc level difficulties is through movement and positioning. When you watch high level players, you'll notice that they are almost never standing still. They are constantly repositioning, not necessarily running away, but choosing where the fight happens to their advantage. That is the habit to build from your first session and will help you level up your gameplay. Point number 4. Melee is essential in Darktide. I've seen some questions on Reddit which ask how important is melee in Darktide. The simple answer to that is that melee is a core aspect of the game. It was the case in Vermintide 1, Vermintide 2, and is still the case in Darktide. You can pretty much go through an entire mission with a melee weapon alone if you are good with your positioning and movement, but you'll find trying to do the same with a ranged weapon can be very difficult. Even the Hive Scum, which can be built for nearly infinite ammo, still has to engage in melee combat every now and then. This game is not Left 4 Dead or some other horde shooter where the main attraction are the guns. Darktide is very much a balance of using both your melee prowess and ranged weapons together. In the early levels, it might feel like there's no point to melee since there aren't very many enemies to kill, But when you are fighting a gigantic wave of poxwalkers mixed with armor while dealing with specials and juggling a monster, 100% you will be forced to melee at some point. The players who fall in love with Darktide are almost always the ones who invested in their melee skills. It's where the game's depth lives. The moment the fluidity and visceral feeling of melee in this game clicks with you is usually the moment people stop wanting to put the game down. Point number 5 is that different weapons have different functions, and that means you should at least try them all out. Darktide doesn't just have a bunch of different weapons available for each character, but each weapon can have different versions of itself called marks. You can access a weapon's different marks through the inspect screen and swap one mark for another. You can do this as many times as you like and it doesn't cost you anything. Why is this important? One mark can function differently to another even though they are in the same weapon family. Take for example the Psyker's Blaze 4 Swords. Within the Blaze 4 Sword family, there are 3 different marks you can pick from: the Obscurus, the Elyssi, and the Deimos. Between them, the Obscurus has an attack pattern and damage profile that sort of acts like a balance between the horde clearing Elyssi and the single target stabbing Deimos. Even their special attack activations are different, with the Elyssi channeling the energy into the sword for a single empowered swipe, while the Obscurus and Deimos share the same Warp Strike which stuns and deals heavy damage to a single target. So the next time you're looking at weapons, be sure to also check out its other marks too. You might not like the default mark, but you might find you enjoy a different version of it. Point number 6 takes us into missions where there are a couple of things you should know about. The first is that all resources like plasteel and diamantine are shared across everyone. If one person finds and picks it up, everyone will get it as well. The resource is not split either, so if you find 50 plasteel, everyone in your team will also get 50 plasteel. There's no need to feel like people are running ahead trying to open every chest to rob you of your resources. The second is that team resources like medicrates and ammo boxes have a limited use to them. When you plant a medicrate on the floor, it lasts for up to 5 minutes and heals up to a total of 500 HP across everyone's health pool. Once that 500 HP is spent, the medicrate runs out. As for the ammo crate, a freshly deployed one contains exactly 4 charges, with each one restoring 100% of your ammo. This means if you are at 0% ammo and you pick up a charge, you'll get back 100% of your ammo and fully load your weapons. This also means you can waste it by picking up a charge to restore 5% of your ammo. So, between its limited charges and total restoration, be considerate and only take one charge for yourself unless you know another player doesn't need it, like a Psyker using a Force Staff. This next point will come about after playing a few games and collecting some resources. When do I upgrade my weapons and what is even worth upgrading? The second question can be answered through my dedicated crafting video, which I will link in the description. But for the first one, point number 7 tells us that weapons you'll find, whether it's from the shop or from missions, will keep getting stronger stat-wise as your trust level goes up. This means that you probably shouldn't fully invest into a weapon until you've reached level 30, because until then, you're going to find better and better weapons as you progress. That being said, I think it's perfectly fine to spend some resources tweaking the perks and blessings of your weapons just to mess around and see if you like it or not. But the thing that you should probably avoid doing is empowering it, since that is going to cost you a lot of resources, especially in the early game when you aren't exactly swimming in them. If you want to get better weapons without burning resources, you can always look at Brunt's shop for something that is already halfway to be decent, or browse Sire Melk's inventory for some decent fully upgraded gear every now and then. Do note that you will need some auto ingots or milk bucks to purchase his wares. The last point on this list is a small one, but one that can only apply when you have a new character. And that is point number 8. Slap on the experience perk onto your curios as soon as you can. Curios are trinkets that you unlock slots for as your character levels up. These pieces of equipment provide some really powerful benefits like damage reduction against certain enemies, health, stamina, toughness, and even ability cooldown regeneration. But one of the most impactful perks you can take while you are still leveling up your character is the plus experience one. This will help boost your end of mission experience and helps to get your character to level 30 as soon as possible so you can have full access to your talents, but also means you can start investing into your weapons fully. With 3 of these perks on your curios, you're getting a sizable 30% more experience, which means for every 3 missions you complete, you more or less get the experience of doing 4. After level 30, the plus experience perk essentially doesn't do anything anymore other than to raise your true level of your character. I really recommend you do this to accelerate your leveling so you can have more to do with your character quicker. This applies whenever you're starting a new character, and with new classes releasing periodically, you'll likely use this tip more than once. So, those were 8 essential points I just gave you to help you survive the first 45 minutes of Darktide. I thought long and hard about what a total beginner really needs to hear to help put them on the right track, and this is the list that I came up with. Then it occurred to me that there was one crucial point I needed to make, assuming this was the only video you were going to watch as a brand new player. Everything I've just given you is the foundation, but the thing that will actually carry you isn't just knowledge, it's mindset. This leads us to the final point. Point number 9. Failure will be your greatest teacher, so pay attention. I know this sounds a bit abstract and cliche. However, with over 2,000 hours of Darktide under my belt, I can tell you that even the best of the best players still mess up in the highest difficulties. Sometimes it's a technical one, failing to dodge at the right time, being a little too greedy and eating an unexpected hit. Other times it's a tactical mistake, going up instead of heading down where there would be more cover, pushing too hard when it should have been a call to retreat. There will be many moments like this, and every time I go down or die, I always ask myself what I could have done better. You will have bad runs, teammates who rush, teammates who don't play their role, missions that fall apart through no fault of your own. That is just part of the game. But the players who improve the fastest and therefore enjoy more and more of the game are the ones who find something to learn even in those runs. If you can maintain this mindset of always looking for improvement, I can bet that you'll go far in this game and maybe even clock in 1,000 hours of your own. With that, welcome to Tertium. Now get out there and serve the Emperor, Varlet.